Hey guys, Mike here from Ecom Knives, and it's 3 days later. I got stuck at my normal job, working late, but gotta pay the bills, right? So here we are. Our glue has dried. You see we have quite a bit of squeeze out from the bottom. It's all hardened, but don't worry, we're gonna sand all that down. You see our spine is recessed in there, so we have to cut out all this excess material. This is still all chewed up, but we have no epoxy on the blade, which is great. This still has some WD-40 on it because, like I said, anytime I leave a high carbon steel blade like this 1084 unattended, I coat it in some oil. It will patina on you, and you would just want to watch out for that. So when you get yours, give it a good wipe down and take a look and make sure you didn't get any excess epoxy anywhere, especially near the edges here. Okay, but we look good. So now I'm going to cut these pins down on my saw. Well, it's not behind me, I thought it was. I'll cut the pins down on my saw. If you don't have the saw, you could use a hacksaw or an angle grinder, and just get as close as you can to the material without digging in. Okay, so if you have a little bit protruding, that's just fine. We're going to take it to the grinder afterwards and sand those pins flat. You know, before we do any cutting or handle shaping, I almost forgot to mention, you want to wrap the finished blade so we don't scratch it up. And of course, like many other steps in this, I should buy this stuff by the gallon. We're going to use some WD-40. So what you're going to do, also, before that, get yourself some cheap electrical tape. Cheaper is actually better, believe it or not. I got this. You get like an 8-pack of this from Harbor Freight for a couple of bucks. Works great. This is going to protect your blade and still make it easy enough to take off later. And that WD-40 that we're going to spray on here is going to allow it so you could dip it in water, you could do whatever you need to do, and you won't unwrap that tape to a big rusty mess. So for the WD, do this so you can see it. All right, you on camera? There we go. All right, I douse it. See, I mean, it's dripping. Same thing on the other side. And then you just shake off the excess. That's it. It's still soaking wet. Now the idea with the tape is you're going to get in here and you have to hold the first layer on because it's obviously not going to stick to the WD-40. Pull it tight and wrap it on itself. Do this a bunch of times, keeping it nice and tight. We're going to work our way all the way down the blade. It doesn't matter if it's even or not, just get it on there. A little extra towards the tip, like that, and I'll wrap it back one way this way. Doesn't have to be pretty. Now, before this, I used to use the blue masking tape, and I didn't like it, honestly. I still use it for sheath making, but I find this to be just easier. And just wrap it the best you can. That looks pretty good to me. We just have to be careful around here and a little bit right there, but good enough. I could put this in a vise now if I have to. I can do whatever I need to do, and the blade is protected. I cut the pins down, and as you can see, we probably have about 1/8 of an inch still protruding, so we need to sand that down on the grinder. And one thing to note, if you don't have the flat like this, you can get them down with a file and just go at them like this and hand sand them. Just know that the G10 will sand a lot faster than the pins, and the idea is to get that flush. If you try and do this all by hand or on a slack portion of the belt or something, you're going to end up with the pins kind of volcanoing up a little bit, and it'll be lower on the G10 around it. And if you do it enough, it's going to be pretty noticeable. So with this, we're going to start with a 120 and just grind them down flat. These will get hot. Do not overheat them. If you have to dip in water, then by all means do so. So we'll grind those down until they're flush. We don't want to go much further than that. on this 120 grit, and then I'm going to go up to a 220, maybe even a 400 to get those pins to take a nice finish. That should do it. Alright. We'll leave it at 220 for now, since we're going to make this kind of an easier how-to series. You can really get nuts, and you could take this up to 1,000 grit finish on the grinder, and then 3,000 grit finish on hand sanding. So it's really, there is no limit of what you can do. But as a beginner, and I know you don't want to waste materials because you're going to be wasting enough steel and stuff as it is, we're just going to go low grits, kind of a raw finish, if you will. But okay, now we need to get that spine back out of there. So we're going to do it just like when we were profiling the blade. You either hold it like this in front of you and go along it. Do the underside on the wheel, some kind of wheel. The 1x30s have them up here, and you definitely don't want to do one of these and hold it off to the side, because you will get a crooked spine. So keep it directly in front of you, either like I said, praying hands, or like this, and go and just until you touch the steel. Once you touch steel, move to a new spot. I'll show you what I mean. I'm starting to blow through the tape on the top. That's alright for now. What we'll have to do is, I'll continue to go through the tape. Just be careful not to move this around too much. We'll have to retape it, because now all the grit and the garbage is going to go underneath the tape. And if you move it, you're going to scratch up your blade. Since I blew through the tape already anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and clean up that spine. I'm just going to sand right through that tape. See what I mean? So we're going to take this up. Oh, I missed this little spot right there. So I'm going to clean that up. Then we'll take it up to a 220. I don't know if the camera will pick this up, but if you notice, that same 220 finish, let me take this respirator off. Stay there. That same 220 finish off of a metal wheel like that, it doesn't look as nice as if you do it off a platen. So it'll look almost like a hammered finish, a little rougher. But that's okay. We're just worried about consistency. We want to get everything nice and flush, which this is now. And same thing with the spine, all the way down is nice and flush with a uniform finish. The rest of this we can do by hand, and we're going to have to get that finger choil. Give this a shot of WD-40 and be careful when you wipe all this grit off. Okay, go in the direction of the satin. Sometimes I like to let the WD-40 sit for 10 minutes. This way when I go to wipe it off, it just comes right off, no problem. So, let's see if I can show you what I mean. Do it over here so you can see it. Let's give it a nice bath. And you'll feel the glue loosening up as it is, but you see I'm going in the direction of the grind lines. This way, if I do grab a piece of 120 grit belt or 220 grit belt, and I'm doing this very gently too, by the way, if I do grab a piece of abrasive, I'm not going to scratch it in the wrong direction of the grind, which is going to stand out like a sore thumb. So that's it. You can see the WD-40's eating that glue up already. I could just take a paper towel now and wipe that off. Everybody's favorite part is cleaning up that finger choil. For this I use a couple of tools. We got our half round file from earlier. That's going to be for our finer cuts. I got one of these rat tail files. They cut a little more aggressively just to get through some of the excess stock there, the G10. Once we get a little closer, I'll clean it up with that one. But this will just rip some material out of there. And of course, a must for this is one of these file card deals to clean out the file. The G10 will clog the file like crazy. So do a bunch of passes, then clean it out with the card, and back to it. So I'll show you how to do it. Just get in there and just start hacking away. And you'll see what I mean about the file clogging up. So you just hit that with the file card, the brush, good to go. Alright, after just a few minutes of filing, I'm down and flush with the metal. So now we just have to clean this up. There's a couple of ways to do it. You can use a Dremel for this, which I've done in the past, but Dremels are really tough to get a nice finish. Just because of the nature of how fast they spin and how small those little sanding drums are. You can also get one of these guys, which is pretty much a Dremel sanding drum for your drill press. This is a 1-inch model. And the drums are actually pretty cheap, but they don't come in super fine grits. So you can get in there and clean it out like that on the drill press. Just be careful, don't press too hard or you're going to kill the bearings in your drill press. And even if you're not pressing hard, over time you're going to hurt the press. It wasn't made to take that kind of lateral force. Conversely, I have my little, of course now I can't find it. Oh, here it is. I have my little metal slug. And guess what we do with this? I wrap this up in some sandpaper and I do it by hand. And that's probably your best option, is to just, when in doubt, do it by hand. It can be done, just it takes time, that's all. So just to save some time, I'll chalk this up in the drill press because I know a lot of you are going to end up buying these anyway. I did, and I did a few knives on them, and they work. Okay, I'll be honest, they work, and they're cheap. So we'll use this, and then we'll probably end up having to clean it up by hand later anyway. But we're just going to clean up the scratches in there. This is a medium grit drum. I think they might have a fine, but so even after this, we're going to have to clean it up anyway. You'll find that these drums wear out pretty quickly. You don't want to go with, like I said, no crazy pressure or anything, just cleaning up scratches. That's why we did most of the work with the file. It's getting there, still some work to do in there. it up here and get rid of those scratches, because I slipped with the file earlier, so now we have to clean that up too. Want to keep this as perpendicular to the drum as you can. Don't go on some crazy angle. Alright, that looks pretty clean to me. Now another thing you can do with these drums is put in your finger relief. These scales are thin enough where you could get away without doing that. But typically you would take the drum and kind of cut out around your index finger, so if you're holding the knife like this, kind of trace your finger and just cut out that groove with the drum. Which, you know what? Yeah, we might as well. Let's do that now. I'll show you what I mean. I'm not going to trace my finger, I'm just going to cut a relief. So I'm going to go on a 45-degree angle. Just kind of work that handle material up. Just like that. Be careful in the front. This is why I like to put the pin here too. So I'm kind of aiming towards that pin, or maybe right in front of it. Don't worry, we're going to blend all this later. You see? Just working that up a little bit and test it out. You know, I still got some hot spots, it's uncomfortable, so I'm going to keep going. And here's a little tip too. If you see on the inside, if that'll show up, come on, focus. You see the lines in the G10, the black lines? I can use those as a reference. So here's the side I did already. I want to take this side to about 2 black lines thick. You see that? See what I'm talking about up there? And that'll make it nice and even for you. Another benefit of G10. Let's see, I wasn't doing this before. I was doing it like that. Let's do it like this. That's pretty close. See, we're just a hair off here, and this needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but we can get in there with hand sanding. But now I can hold the knife and it's super comfortable already, and we haven't even contoured the scales yet, so that looks good to me. Alright, on to contouring.